explore the human side of climate work, from fear to courage, perception and meaning making. And for those engaged in deep systemic work, what sustains them? I'm Leslie Davenport, your host and a climate psychology consultant, and I'm excited to introduce our guest today. Our guest is Isabel Cavelier Adarve. She is a writer, speaker, language and poetry wanderer, lawyer, former diplomat, advocate for planetary transition, and creator of eco-social initiatives for cultural transformation. She co-founded Mundo Común in Colombia, which means a common world, our common world. So Isabel, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you so much for your invitation, and thank you to all of your audience for listening to us today.
Tell us a little bit more about your organization and the work you do.
Certainly. Mundo Común was founded some 3 years ago, and it's dedicated, in short, to seeding and nurturing a culture of care and the awareness that we are just another part of the living web of life, that we are nature. We are not just trying to protect something outside of us. We are part of that web of life. So that is what Mundo Común is aiming at, and we do that through what we call the design of infrastructures for cultural change. That sounds quite big, but I can explain what that means. It is ways that you can call formats, programs, sessions, but also narratives that are all aimed at helping us live in our bodies, that we are interdependent, that we inter-are with the rest of life. Because when we remember that we inter-are, and we don't just talk about it, but we feel it in our body, then there is no other option than to build a relationship from a place of care rather than from feeling separated, that then leads us to ways of relating that are based on extraction, that has led our entire culture to where we are right now. So that's what we do. The formats, the programs, the narratives take very different shapes. In many cases, we call them interspecies activations because we want to do this work together with other than human beings that we share this planet with. And remember that we can learn from those intelligences to better navigate our own identity and our own way to relate to the rest of the world. So in a nutshell, that's what we do, and we can go into more depth later on if you want.
Yeah, wonderful. Talk a little bit about what led you to doing this. What opened your eyes to the importance of this kind of work?
I think it was a combination of things. The first one was my work on climate change. I have been dedicating my professional career to working on climate and sustainability, or you can call it regeneration, for quite a long time. And most of that time in the past, I was doing more climate policy and politics work. And there came a point when, after a lot of beautiful and fulfilling work, it also started to become very repetitive. And I think I held frustration because I started noticing that we were living in a paradox. And the paradox was that the climate community, if I may call that community a community, it's a strange word for such a large and diverse group of humans and non-humans working to care for our climate and our world. But I suppose that the climate community was being very effective narratively. We were having many big successes. The net zero paradigm, for example, expanded very quickly. That's one example, among many other examples. The way our work was penetrating the narratives of government and corporations and civil society was quick and effective, but it was not translated to real reductions of emissions and to the building of actual resilience on the ground.
Yeah.
And that was a dissonance that I thought was very frustrating, and I couldn't find the reason why this was happening. So I started trying to widen my readings and my understanding of the contemporary challenges, and along with many others, because I don't take the full credit for this, along with other people with whom I started Mundo Común, we understood that we were focusing our energy in the wrong place, that the community was too focused on the symptoms and attending to the symptoms of the crisis rather than going upstream and understanding what is underneath, the undercurrent that has our humanity behaving like we behave, even when we say that we want to care for our planet, that we don't do it. So that was, I think it was originally an intellectual realization, and then it started also becoming a very physical realization when I gave myself the opportunity to be more directly and intentionally in dialogue with non-human beings and with non-human intelligences and learning from them as part of our work. So I think that's the reason why it was a big shift in my professional dedication. It was that realization of the dissonance that I referred to.
Yes, wonderful. Well, being in this work, and part of the importance of it, you're exposed through awareness and perhaps direct experiences with a lot of harm and upheaval. And how do you navigate the emotional challenges that come with this? What supports you?
I think we humans have very sophisticated psychological mechanisms to support ourselves, and they include, I think the most widespread one is that we try not to look at what is painful and be more evasive or numb ourselves with other things and distractions, so that we don't have to be in the discomfort of the pain that this entails. And I think that had been me, and it still is. I don't want to be dishonest. Sometimes it happens to me too, because we all need to find some rest.
That's right.
But I think that's only it's like a fiction. It's not the real rest. It's not the real support. It's something quite illusionary, because it doesn't really carry us through facing all of this discomfort and painful realities. The thing that really nurtures me has been in the past and the recent work that I do, two things. First is the community around the restoration and the work towards caring for the cycles of life. All of that community supporting us, being together, learning together how to go through the grief in company, I think is the most important one. But also nurturing the capacity to observe, to perceive that across all of that pile of grief and pain and upheaval, something is also being born. It's the realization that we are accompanying a system and many beings through a moment of death. And that process is always also a moment of birth. And whatever and however it is being born, how it is how every birth is. It's very subtle, gentle. It's also painful, difficult, but it's full of hope. And so when I observe that the world is also giving birth to something beautiful, and I take my own responsibility of being part of that birth and observe it in me and in my community and in the ecosystems around, if I could just watch like a little seed just sprouts, it's so fragile. I can see seeds sprouting of a new culture all around me. And I just need to be attentive to watch that is happening. So that type of subtle attention is,
Yes.
and what it makes me see is what keeps me full of hope through this transition. And I think the awareness that gives us, that the transition is a moment of turbulence, and that for moments of turbulence, what happens when you are going through turbulence? You take each other's hand, you make some space in your body to move and not be too stiff, because when you are too stiff, you cannot row in your boat, or you cannot just go through the movement. You need to give some space for the movement, for the discomfort, for the moment of maybe disorientation. And I think you have to nurture the trust. It's a faith that you are going through a phase and that everything is cyclical. And that through this phase, this space is what gives you the opportunity for the birth that you're holding.
Okay. So many people are waking up to what's happening and want to find a way to be involved, to be part of the birth as you've described it, and struggle to kind of find their way to do that. Is there any other specifics you can add to what you've described, given
Yes.
that people listening may be in all kinds of environments?
Absolutely. I understand that, because this is a transition of the human psyche that we are going through. And so, in a way, it's every single one of us is going through this inside of us, and we are also seeing it collectively. It works like a fractal, like a fern leaf, where every single little bit is the same like the big leaf. And what we've found in our work is what we've called the 6 thresholds for a planetary transition. These are 6 fields, or a threshold is a good word because it's like a door that you go through, and you are one before and you are one after you go through this threshold. And these 6 thresholds are things that you can nurture or cultivate in your life, in your everyday life, also in your work, in many different ways. There are so many different practices, but these thresholds can help you, let's say, see or engage in different ways in being part of this birth. And these thresholds are the following. This is the framework that Mundo Común is operating with, that we didn't just invent. This is a distillation of the experience of our work throughout these years. The first one is really nurturing a new way of understanding. We call it new paradigms for the transition. It's understanding that the problem is not just a symptom. It's not just global warming. It's like, what is behind that? It's really a deeper paradigm shift that we are seeking. That's the first threshold, new paradigms. The second one is nurturing a sense of kinship with the non-human, more than human, with the rest of the web of life. We are kin with them. We are not just a different or superior species. We are interdependent. The third one is nurturing or really practicing the deep intelligence of our body as a technology for perception and for relationality. It's like stopping being just in our heads. The fourth one is, as I had mentioned, being able to see grief and grieving practices as fertile. In Spanish, when we speak about fertile soil, we say suelo fértil, like fertile soil. But for fertile grief, the word is duelo fértil. So it's just one letter of a difference. So we call it fertile grieving, almost like fertile soil. And it's like tending to grief as something that can be fertile and that can give birth to something else, like compost. And also celebrating joy, because we can be joyful through this process. That's the fourth, grief and joy. Fertile grief and joy. The fifth one is how we can reclaim a sense of world-making agency in community. It's cultivating our agency in ways that are not just the classic activism that is very important. It's that we humans make the worlds in which we live that then determine the conditions for us to think, tell stories, live. We are circular beings. We are not just Homo sapiens. We really are Homo narrans. We tell the stories that create the worlds in which we live and that then determine our biology. So that's a very important one. That's the fifth one. And the final and sixth one is nurturing again a sense of reverence for what we don't understand, for the invisible, for the numinous, for the sacred, for what is beyond our capacity of reason, and even beyond our capacity for turning things into words. You can call it with many names. And those six, they don't have an order. And as I said, there are many practices within them that each person will find more attuned to their own needs and their own beings. And we have different orders to enter these doors, but normally one can lead into another one. And I'm happy to go into one or the other with more practices if you think that that's helpful. But I thought the framework was useful because it's a way to see that you can engage from different perspectives into this birth, and all of them are necessary, right?
Yes,
it's not one or the other.
Beautiful, yes. And I can see how they connect and one leads to the other. And would you be willing to share for you a practice that you go to for stepping into the unknown, to being with the numinous, to trusting that?
Yes. My most common one, the daily one, is connected with my dream world that is very vivid. So I write my dreams every morning. It's the first thing I do. And even if I don't have a dream, I also try to write every morning a few pages. That's a very known practice. It's used across cultures and disciplines. For me, it works very well, and I really have a moment of connection with my dreams. And it's not just writing my dream. I write my dreams in the present tense and in the first person. So I'm like entering into this part of my psyche in a very direct way. But I also try to incubate my dreams at night. So before going to bed, I ask questions to my dreams. So there's a whole dreaming practice there that is very common and for me, is very frequent. I also, like many others, do my best to meditate regularly. And I cultivate my gratitude also every single night and every single morning. I tell my daughter out loud every night what we are grateful for, and I tell her out loud that she's a girl full of love to give and to receive. And sometimes she's just, Mom, you already told me this. And she knows that I tell her every day, but there is something in repetition. There is something in the practice of recurrence, of doing things over and over again, even when you thought they are already boring. I think probably that is the most important aspect of the practice, is really cultivating the repetition of it. That takes each practice to connect with what is beyond the practice itself. And then I would say that the other one that is very illuminating for me is because I have been a very rational, mind-oriented person. The newest opening is the connection to my body. I do go to practice sensitive movement with my partner and co-founder of Mundo Común, who is a very a great teacher for that. So every week, and we try to do it with more people to practice contact dance and somatic. Somatic means related to the body, sensitive movement practices that helps us understand the subtlety of our bodies beyond what we can make of them in our brains. And that's very, very important as a connection to the numinous in my life. Yeah, I will really leave it at that.
I really understand that. My earliest career was as a dancer. Yeah.
So you understand it perfectly. The opposite to me, I'm only understanding that now as a grown up, and I wish I had that opening earlier in my life. And I do think that if we only danced more, all humans, right?
On that.
If we only danced more. Yes.
Well, I love how, you were talking about thresholds and the model of the work, but even in what we're talking about, we've sort of come through the gates at different times and are crossing the terrain, right? And ending up with gathering these various elements along the way.
That's right. Yes.
Well, before we close, I just want to give you a chance to consider if there's anything on your heart, on your mind that you'd like to share that we haven't covered.
Yes, maybe I will say that the most full of hope thread, because we are weaving, right? Humans are weavers. We are not just makers of hard tools like axes and computers. Actually, we are first, and before that, we were weavers. You know Ursula Le Guin's stories about the carrier bag and how before making the hard tools, we made bags by weaving, but they didn't really survive time because they are softer materials. And in that, I find a lot of inspiration there, because what we are doing now to give a gentle, beautiful, hopefully joyful death to a system that has carried us far and that has given us many beautiful things and many awful things.
Yes.
That needs to die. As we do that, we are at the same time giving birth to the new one, to the new culture. And as we do that, we are weaving that. And if you are a weaver or someone who stitches or embroids, or you have ever done it, it's like every movement of your hand is like it's like a writing. It's a trace. When you have something that is hand woven, you can see the traces of the hands that were doing that. And when you look at it more broadly, I think this is what we are doing with our own identities and with our own human psyche. So it is very critical as we do that we cultivate our ability to hold in ourselves the beauty with which we want to weave this new world, and that we hold it right now, not as a wish for the future, but as the stitch that you are stitching right now. Because if we only keep ourselves grieving and focusing on the potential apocalypse, there is no room for weaving those new threads or those new stitches in this beautiful big piece that we constantly are that we are constantly weaving and reweaving. And so that sounds a little bit abstract, but it's very concrete and specific. It means that the most important practice is that you don't have to think today what you thought yesterday. That today you can think anew, and that the new thinking is, and the new acting upon those thoughts, that is what is going to make a change in behavior and then in all of the designs that constitute our reality. But if we don't go upstream to that level, if we only try like hamsters on a wheel to reorganize objects in the system,
Yes.
we are losing the focus
Yes.
in the actual work that we are doing right now.
Yes.
And we are just wasting time.
We're dropping the stitches on the line that we're weaving.
We are just letting the whole thing on a side. Yeah, we are not even weaving. We are just we are just letting something else than us weave what is being woven. So if we are to have agency in what we are doing, it needs to start from within.
Yes.
It really does. And sometimes it feels really difficult because you feel gloomy, disheartened, frustrated, anguished, all of those feelings that are very common in our days, in these contemporary challenging times. And when it feels hard like that, obviously we need to find the anchors in community, in the stories that we know have been told for eons, generations upon generations, and try to just zoom out and observe the bigger times of this earth that are full of life and death and life and death and life and death. So there are many anchors that we can pull, but the most important one is don't forget what you are allowing in your own inner being. That's what reflects outside. I read a beautiful sentence recently that I will end this with. It's like our Earth's climate is a mirror of our inner climate. And it's both, it goes both ways. It's not just let's fix the Earth's climate so that our inner climate is fixed. They are constantly mirroring each other.
Yes, beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you so much. This has been so rich and so helpful.
Thank you, Leslie. I'm glad.
If you'd like to learn more about Isabel and the work of her organization, please visit the show notes and consider subscribing to this station so that we can continue building our community, because we're always better together. Thank you, everyone, and see you next time.
Thank you.